Most men think they understand why they love kissing a woman down there. They think it's simple lust, curiosity, a physical urge. But that's the surface level answer of a man who has never really studied himself. The deeper truth is harder to admit. A man is not drawn there just because he wants pleasure. He is drawn there because something far more primal is happening. Something tied to power, trust, validation, control, surrender, and the ancient male hunger to feel the direct impact of his presence on a woman's body and mind. And most men never see that. They think it's just another sexual act. It isn't. Not psychologically, not symbolically, not in the hidden language attraction speaks when words are gone and performance falls away. Because when a man wants to be there, when he genuinely craves it, when it excites him on a level deeper than novelty, what he is really responding to is not just the body in front of him, he is responding to access, to acceptance, to the feeling that he has crossed a line most men only fantasize about but never fully understand. Listen carefully. By the end of this, you'll understand why so many men are drawn to that act with an intensity they can't even explain, why weak men misread it, why women often understand the emotional meaning of it better than men do, and why the whole thing reveals far more about masculine psychology than most people are ready to face. Because disciplined men do not stop at the surface. They don't just feel, they observe. They don't get lost in the moment so completely that they miss what the moment is showing them. That's the stoic difference. A weak man experiences his desire and becomes its prisoner. A strong man experiences desire and studies its structure. He asks himself what hunger is really speaking through him. And when you do that here, you start to realize this has almost nothing to do with what modern people pretend it's about. The first thing most men miss is this: a man loves kissing a woman down there because it gives him direct evidence of effect. That matters more than people think. Men are wired to seek impact. Not noise, not empty approval, impact. A man wants to feel that his presence changes something, that his touch matters, that his attention is not passive but consequential. And in that act, the feedback is immediate. Her breathing shifts, her tension changes, her body speaks without diplomacy. There is no corporate language there, no social script, no polished mask, just response. And that changes everything. Because men spend most of their lives in performance, competing, proving, restraining, calculating, earning, posturing. Even in relationships, many men never fully relax because they feel they are being evaluated, their status, their money, their composure, their confidence, their usefulness. But in those raw, intimate moments, a different test appears, one that is far more ancient. Can you make her feel? Can you lead her into pleasure without needing applause? Can you stay present long enough to read what words can't say? That is why the act pulls on something deeper than lust. It gives a man a direct line into consequence. He is no longer speaking about desire, he is shaping it. And here's what most men miss: that experience can become intoxicating because it bypasses abstraction. It turns intimacy into proof. Not proof that she likes him, that's too shallow. Proof that he can affect her at a level beneath manners, beneath social games, beneath the polished image she shows the world. For a few moments, the responses are too real to fake. The body doesn't negotiate the way the ego does. The body reveals. That's why some men become obsessed with it and can't fully explain why. They think they just love doing it, but the deeper truth is that they love what it makes them feel about themselves in relation to her. Effective, chosen, trusted, capable, sometimes even necessary. And when a man has lived much of his life feeling replaceable, doubted, or emotionally shut out, that feeling can hit with enormous force. Now pay attention, because this is where weak men fail. A weak man hears this and turns it into ego. He starts thinking the act is about proving himself, collecting validation, getting addicted to reaction. He becomes outcome dependent. He loses the center. He stops being present and starts performing for reassurance. And once a man does that, the power is gone because now he's not giving from strength, he's bargaining from need. That's the trap. A strong man enjoys the effect without becoming enslaved to it. He understands that intimacy reveals patterns, but it should never own his mind. He does not go there like a starving man begging to feel important. He goes there like a composed man who is grounded enough to give full attention without collapsing into insecurity. That distinction is everything. The same act can come from neediness or from abundance, from hunger or from command. from emotional emptiness or from masculine presence, and women can feel the difference even when they can't articulate it. The second layer is even deeper. Men love kissing down there because it represents access to a form of intimacy that cannot be faked. That's the part people avoid saying out loud. Physical closeness is one thing, but this is not ordinary closeness. This is exposure, vulnerability, trust. A woman may let a man touch her. She may kiss him. She may flirt with him. She may play the role of desire. But when she allows him into a space that private, that close, that unguarded, something else is being communicated beneath the physical act. Not always love, not always deep attachment, but often trust, acceptance, and a willingness to let him experience her without the usual distance. That is profoundly powerful to a man. Not because he is collecting trophies, that's how boys think. A mature man understands that access is meaningful because it reveals lowered defenses. In a world where people wear masks, any moment of real permission carries weight. And this kind of permission speaks to something primal in male psychology. It tells him, for that moment, you are not outside. You are inside the perimeter. You are not dealing with the public version of me. You are dealing with something rawer. Most men never say it this way because they are embarrassed by the truth. They would rather pretend it's just a physical preference than admit how deeply they are affected by a woman's trust. But many men are, more than they realize. The act stirs something emotional because it makes a man feel admitted, not just aroused. And the deeper truth is darker than it looks. A man who has rarely felt chosen in life can become intensely attached to any form of access that feels exclusive. That is why some men confuse intimacy with attachment and pleasure with meaning. One experience makes them feel seen, welcomed, powerful, and connected all at once, and suddenly they start writing stories in their head. They think the act means more than it does. They project depth where there may only be chemistry. They confuse openness in one domain with loyalty in all domains. Most men completely misread this. That's why emotional control matters, because the moment may be real, but your interpretation of it can still be weak. A disciplined man receives the moment without exaggerating it. He understands that trust given in intimacy is meaningful, but he does not build castles from one night of access. He stays sharp. He enjoys what is true without inventing what is not. That is masculine clarity, and that clarity is rare. If you're hearing this and recognizing how many men confuse physical permission with emotional certainty, subscribe now, not for noise, not for shallow advice. Subscribe if you value truth over illusion, because most men are being ruled by instincts they've never had the discipline to examine. Now let's go deeper. Another reason men love kissing down there is because it creates a paradox that speaks directly to masculine psychology. It looks like service, but it can feel like control. This is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable for people who only understand power in the most crude and cartoonish way. Weak minds think power always looks dominant on the surface. Loud voice, demands, posturing, taking, forcing. But real power often looks quieter than that. Real power can look like patience, focus, restraint, timing, the ability to guide without panic, the ability to hold the frame even while giving. And in that act, a man can feel deeply in control precisely because he is not rushing to take. He is leading the rhythm of experience. He is studying reaction, adjusting pressure, building tension, releasing it. In other words, he is not just consuming pleasure, he is directing an intimate environment. That matters more than most people admit, because masculine satisfaction is not only about getting what you want, it is often about being the one who can handle the moment with steadiness, the one who does not become frantic, the one who can slow down when others speed up, the one who understands that command is not always aggressive, sometimes command is composure under intimacy. And women feel that. A woman can sense when a man is there with chaotic hunger, trying to prove something, trying to extract validation, trying to race towards some private insecurity. She can also sense when he is grounded, attentive, and completely unshaken by closeness. The first man feels selfish even when he is technically giving. The second man feels powerful even when he is serving. That is the paradox weak men do not understand. Service without need becomes strength. That is why the act can feel so masculine to a man who is internally solid. Not because it is degrading and not because it is submissive, but because it allows him to embody a form of control that is refined instead of loud. He is not there begging for acceptance. He is there choosing precision, and precision is power. But here's the catch. If a man lacks inner stability, the same act can expose him brutally. It reveals impatience, ego, fragility, insecurity, the inability to read, the need to be praised, the fear of not being enough. Intimacy always reveals character, and this form of intimacy does it fast, because now there is nowhere to hide. You cannot bluff attentiveness. You cannot fake presence for long. You cannot posture your way through subtlety. Either you are grounded enough to observe and respond, or you are not. And this is why it matters beyond the bedroom, because a man's behavior in intimate moments often mirrors how he moves through life. Does he rush because he fears stillness? Does he overdo things because he doesn't trust simplicity? Does he seek reassurance every time he gives? Does he collapse into performance when the moment requires calm? These are not sexual problems, these are character problems. The moment just exposes them. A composed man learns from that. He notices where his ego tries to interfere. He notices where impatience enters. He notices where he stops listening and starts proving, and then he corrects it quietly, without drama. That is masculine development. Not slogans, not fake alpha theater, just sharper awareness under pressure. There's another layer beneath all of this, and most men are completely blind to it. Many men love kissing a woman down there because it allows them to experience a rare kind of masculine devotion without feeling weak. That sentence alone will confuse people who only understand men through stereotypes. Men are taught to think devotion makes them vulnerable, that care softens them, that giving too much lowers their position. So they learn to protect themselves with distance, sarcasm, detachment, or constant sexual greed. They want connection, but they fear dependence. They want closeness, but they don't want to feel exposed by wanting it. So when they find an act that feels intensely giving, intensely intimate, yet still charged with masculinity and erotic authority, it hits something deep. It lets them express hunger, care, focus, and intensity all at once. That is a rare combination. A man may not say, I want to devote myself in that moment. His ego won't use those words, but beneath the ego, something close to that is happening. For a moment, his attention becomes singular. The noise drops, the performance drops. The usual fragmentation of modern male consciousness, the scrolling, the proving, the restless pursuit of stimulation falls away. He is locked in, focused, present, directed. And that state feels good not just because of sex, but because presence itself is a form of relief. In a distracted age, full attention feels almost sacred, and men hunger for that more than they realize. The tragedy is that weak men often can't handle the emotional meaning of that kind of focus, so they reduce it to dirty jokes, crude language, and exaggerated swagger. They make noise because silence would force them to confront how vulnerable real desire can make a man feel. It is easier to act like an animal than to admit how much intimacy moves you. But strong men don't panic when a moment touches them deeply. They don't become sentimental fools, and they don't become cynical clowns either. They stay rooted. They let the experience be what it is. Intense, human, revealing, nothing more, nothing less. That balance is strength. Now let's go even deeper, because there is one truth most men avoid harder than all the others. Some men love kissing down there because it gives them temporary relief from the burden of their own mind. This is where it gets dangerous. A man carrying stress, pressure, loneliness, emotional suppression, or unspoken frustration often looks for moments where thought disappears, not because he is weak, but because constant internal tension exhausts him. Intimate acts can become one of the few spaces where he feels fully absorbed, fully directed, fully outside the loop of overthinking. He is no longer in the courtroom of his own mind. He is in the body, in sensation, in immediacy, in a task with clear feedback and no philosophical debate. That kind of relief can feel unbelievably powerful. And when it is mixed with pleasure, intimacy, and emotional charge, it can become something a man seeks again and again without fully understanding why. He thinks he is chasing the act. Sometimes he is really chasing the silence it creates inside him. The stillness, the temporary end of mental noise, the moment where self-consciousness dissolves and instinct takes over. But here's the danger. If a man uses intimacy only as escape, He becomes dependent on external experiences to regulate internal chaos. Then he is no longer in control. Then desire becomes anesthesia. Then women become medicine for a lack of inner order. And once that happens, the man starts losing his edge. He becomes vulnerable to obsession, to overinvestment, to emotional blindness, because he is not just enjoying a woman anymore. He is using her presence to avoid himself. That never ends well. The disciplined man understands the difference between desire and dependence. He can enjoy intensity without being ruled by it. He can enter the moment fully and still leave with his mind intact. He does not make a woman responsible for calming the storm he refuses to confront alone. That is self-mastery. And without self-mastery, pleasure becomes another chain. Now imagine two men. The first man goes there hungry for proof, hungry for escape, hungry to feel wanted, hungry to forget himself. He may look passionate, but underneath the surface, he is unstable. If her reaction is strong, he feels high. If her reaction is muted, he feels threatened. If she pulls away, his ego cracks. If she gives access, he reads destiny into it. Every moment owns him because he has handed over the center of gravity. The second man also desires intensely, but he is calm. He is there because he wants to be, not because he needs the act to confirm his worth. He reads, he adjusts, he enjoys, he stays present, but his mind remains his own. If the moment is beautiful, he appreciates it. If it is awkward, he doesn't crumble. If the connection grows, he welcomes it. If it doesn't, he does not lose himself in fantasy. He leaves the moment the same man who entered it, only more informed. That is the man with power, and this is why the title matters more than people think. Why do men love kissing down there? Because for many men, it touches nearly every hidden wire at once. Desire, access, trust, feedback, control, devotion, presence, relief, masculine precision, emotional impact. It compresses all of that into one act, and the body often understands the meaning before the mind does. That is why the urge can feel stronger than logic. That is why men struggle to explain it. The act is physical, but the attraction to it is psychological, symbolic, and deeply human. But the deepest truth is this: what a man does with that desire reveals whether he is ruled by instinct or refined by awareness. A boy is consumed by the act. A man learns from it. A weak man uses it to chase validation. A strong man uses it to sharpen perception. A needy man seeks identity through reaction. A grounded man gives attention without losing identity. A blind man gets carried away by access. A disciplined man recognizes the gift of the moment without building delusions around it. And that changes everything. Because once you see what is really happening beneath the surface, you stop moving through intimacy like an unconscious animal. You start seeing the hidden dynamics. You start understanding why some moments bond people so deeply, why some men become addicted to certain women, why some forms of giving feel more powerful than taking, and why composure inside desire is one of the rarest masculine traits left. Gentlemen, the world trains men to be loud and blind, to chase sensation without understanding it, to call every urge freedom while living as a slave to impulse. But strength has never been that. Strength is awareness under pressure, restraint inside appetite, clarity in moments that make weaker men lose their center. That is the real lesson here. The point was never just what men love. The point is why they love it, what it reveals, and whether they are conscious enough to face that truth without flinching. Because when a man understands the hidden meaning behind his desires, he becomes harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to seduce into foolishness. He stops confusing access with loyalty, pleasure with value, intensity with truth. He starts observing patterns instead of worshipping moments. And that is where masculine power returns, calm, sharp, unmoved by illusion. So yes, many men love kissing down there, but not for the reasons they usually give. They love it because beneath the act is a deeper experience of impact, trust, focus, access, and controlled intensity. They love it because it makes something ancient in them feel alive. And if they are not careful, it can also expose every weakness they have not mastered. Remember that. The disciplined man does not reject desire. He studies it. He enters it with open eyes. He enjoys it without kneeling before it. He remains composed where others become reckless. He remains observant where others become blind, and that is why he leaves every intimate experience stronger, not more confused. If this exposed a truth most men never put into words, subscribe and comment awareness below. Because in the end, power is not in reacting harder, power is in seeing deeper.